Travel is advertised as something that broadens your mind, expands your worldview, and turns you into a more enlightened human being. In reality, for some people, travel is just a way to export stupidity overseas. America doesn't only export Hollywood movies, technology, and fast food. We also export a very special kind of tourist maximum confidence minimum awareness. The kind who looks at a 2000-year-old monument and thinks, I bet climbing that would be fun, sees wildlife and thinks, yeah, I can selfie that, or stands in the middle of a desert and asks for the Wi-Fi password. This is not a travel guide. This is a highlight reel of moments where logic clocks out, common sense goes missing, and an American passport becomes the main antagonist. Buckle up. Every story you're about to hear is real. And unfortunately, not everyone survived their confidence. 1. There is a very specific moment in human evolution where the brain looks at bubbling lava and still thinks, my phone matters more. One tourist dropped his smartphone into the mouth of an active volcano, and his first instinct wasn't acceptance, it was retrieval. Because memories fade, dignity is optional, but Instagram stories are forever. In his mind, the phone was apparently immortal, and lava was just a warm visual effect. A volcano, an entity that has erased entire cities, was ranked lower than a device with 20% battery. Science calls this ignorance. Marketing calls it emotional attachment to technology. When he slipped, rescue teams had to race against temperatures capable of vaporizing anything containing carbon. The phone dead, his reputation eternal. The lesson here isn't don't do this. Everyone already knows that. The lesson is that modern humans are willing to negotiate with death if there's a chance to recover electronics. And in the battle between survival instinct and unread notifications, survival doesn't always win. 2. Safari has one rule. 1. It's repeated in every language imaginable: do not leave the vehicle. Not because guides are strict, but because what's outside is a lion, not a theme park mascot. Still, one American tourist saw a lion lounging a few meters away and thought, that's too far. The photo has no depth. His solution? Open the door, step out, walk closer. In his head, the lion was basically a very large cat waiting for a portrait session. The guide, meanwhile, experienced an immediate existential crisis, realizing he might lose his job, his tour, and possibly his tourist in the most literal sense. The lion didn't roar, it didn't charge, it just stared. And that stare said one thing very clearly. Oh, free delivery. It was a perfect biological moment, a professional predator meeting prey that voluntarily exited its armored shell. Luckily, it didn't turn into a Discovery Channel reenactment. But the lesson is clear. Some people believe nature respects confidence. Nature only respects the food chain, and selfies have never been part of it. 3. A bison weighs close to a ton, has horns, a documented history of flipping cars, and existed long before humans invented the concept of friendly petting. But inside a national park, one American tourist saw a stationary bison, and his brain translated it as Midwestern Dairy Cow XL Edition. He walked up, reached out, and patted its head like greeting a good dog. In that moment, the bison wasn't angry. I was surprised. And surprise is extremely dangerous when a wild animal realizes it's been mistaken for a petting zoo attraction. It responded in nature's oldest language, force and momentum. The tourist was airborne faster than regret could load. The park had signs, many signs. But signs don't stand a chance against the confidence of someone who believes I'm different. Every year, bison injure more people than bears, not because they're aggressive, but because humans insist on testing boundaries. Petting a bison isn't loving nature. It's a social experiment where the variable is your skull. And science has already concluded bison do not want to be your friend. It wants you about 75 feet away. 4. Molten lava is rock in its angry phase, hot enough to erase anything that was once labeled a good idea. And still someone looked at it and thought basically a campfire. One tourist stood before a glowing lava flow, pulled out a stick, and decided to poke it. Not out of necessity. Out of curiosity, the same curiosity that has ruined countless reputations throughout history. When the stick touched the lava, it didn't burn slowly for cinematic effect. It disappeared. Instantly. A live science demonstration occurred, and the tourist concluded, wow, that's hot. Congratulations. You just peer-reviewed a fact humanity has known since the Stone Age. Around him were warning signs, barriers, guides, and a long history of accidents. None of it stood a chance against the need to personally verify reality. This wasn't exploration. It was the I need to check for myself syndrome. Nature doesn't need your experiment to prove its power. It just needs you to step wrong once. And lava, unlike the internet, does not allow edits. 5. The Dead Sea isn't named for vibes. It's a hypersaline lake where your body floats effortlessly and every sign politely repeats the same message. Do not let the water touch your eyes, nose, mouth, or any opening you value. And yet someone saw the calm surface and decided to dive in head first, like kicking off summer at the neighborhood pool. The moment his face hit the water, his body enrolled in an advanced chemistry course. Salt doesn't refresh, it invades, it burns. It punishes the belief that nature will go easy on confidence. The scream that followed wasn't surprise, it was nerve endings filing a formal complaint. He was dragged to shore where he cried and relearned how blinking works. This isn't a tragic accident. It's a perfect demonstration of why reading signs is a survival skill, not a suggestion. The Dead Sea isn't trying to kill you. It just wants you to float, relax, and respect physics. Diving in head first is the fastest way to turn a spiritual vacation into a painfully memorable lesson about ignoring large red letters. 6. The Great Pyramid of Giza has been standing for over 4,000 years. It has watched empires rise and collapse and survived every dumb human trend imaginable, and still someone looks at it and thinks, the view up there must be amazing. Ignoring laws, barriers, history, and basic reasoning, he starts climbing like it's an outdoor gym. Every stone step becomes a test of friction and ego. At the top, the wind doesn't whisper enlightenment. It just blows harder. Below, tourists take photos. Nearby security sighs they've seen this episode before. When he finally comes back down by a route far less heroic than imagined, he learns that World Heritage Sites are not personal playgrounds. A great view is never worth disrespecting a structure that existed long before the concept of selfies. The pyramid doesn't need you climbing it to prove its greatness. It needs you standing below, looking up, and realizing that some things aren't improved by being physically higher. Illegal climbing here isn't exploration. It's turning history into a prop and yourself into a live demonstration of why rules exist. 7. Vatican City is the spiritual center for billions of people. It's a sovereign state with laws, history, and a security force that is very much not symbolic. But to some people, all of that fades in comparison to the urge for an epic drone shot. One American tourist stands in the square, looks at the massive dome, and thinks, this needs an aerial angle. Up goes the drone, buzzing like a tech mosquito over one of the most sacred places on Earth. In his mind, this is content creation. In the Vatican's mind, it's a security violation. The drone doesn't become art, it becomes evidence. Battery full, imagination empty. The meeting with the Italian police happens faster than a 4K frame rate. No likes, no shares, just paperwork. This is where reality hits hard. Not every place is a playground for flying toys. The Vatican doesn't need new camera angles to prove its importance. And your drone, no matter how smart it is, doesn't get to fly over history just because you want something cinematic. The only thing that really goes up here is the fine. 8. Machu Picchu is not a stage. It's an ancient city balanced between mountains, built with engineering so precise it humbles modern architects. But a group of American tourists saw something else, the perfect backdrop for a dance video. Music on, moves activated. History politely steps aside for the algorithm. For a brief moment, Machu Picchu becomes a TikTok house without Wi-Fi. The choreography doesn't connect with spiritual energy, only with a stunning lack of awareness. Security appears like an unwanted jump cut. The music stops. The viral dream dies. UNESCO does not give awards for heritage choreography. Machu Picchu didn't survive centuries to become a background for trends that last 2 weeks. This isn't creativity. It's confusing the right to record with the right to disrupt. Heritage sites are not props. And when you turn a sacred place into your personal stage, the only thing that spreads faster than your video is the second-hand embarrassment of the entire internet watching you get escorted out. 9. The demilitarized zone between North and South Korea is one of the most tense places on Earth. The air is thick with history politics and the potential for things to go wrong very quickly. The soldiers there don't smile, don't joke, and don't blink because their job is not to entertain. But one American tourist looked at the scene and switched his brain into comedy mode. He started making goofy faces, bulging his eyes, sticking out his tongue like he was trying to save a dying birthday party. In his mind, this was funny. In reality, this was how you turn a guided tour into an international incident. South Korean soldiers immediately dragged him away like they were disarming a walking liability. No laughter, no just kidding. Only the delayed realization that not every serious stare is waiting for a punchline. This border is not a stage, and those soldiers are not NPCs in a video game. Mockery here isn't just rude, it's a test of whether you understand the world at all. And when you turn one of the most dangerous borders in history into your personal joke, the luckiest possible outcome is being removed before you become a textbook example. 10. Petra has existed for over 2,000 years, carved directly into sandstone, where every crack is history and every grain of dust belongs exactly where it is. But one tourist looked at the ancient wall and thought, that looks kind of dirty. The solution emerged from a modern backpack, a wet wipe. Soft citrus scented and completely inappropriate for a World Heritage site. He started wiping like he was cleaning a kitchen counter after dinner, fully convinced he was helping. Meanwhile, the tour guide experienced a professional panic attack because what he called dirt was actually a fragile surface layer that had survived millennia. Wet wipes don't just remove grime, they remove structure. This wasn't care, it was destruction with a lemon scent. Petra doesn't need to be cleaned by modern bathroom standards. It needs to be left alone. Heritage sites are not IKEA decor that need a quick wipe for aesthetic reasons. When you pull out a wet wipe in front of an ancient stone, you're not helping history. You're proving that misplaced confidence can be destructive even when it disguises itself as good intentions. 11. A gondola in Venice is a delicately balanced system piloted by someone who's done this their entire life and survived by one simple rule: people stay seated. But one couple looked at the romantic moment and thought, we need a better angle. To get the perfect selfie, the husband stood up and then had an even better idea, switching seats with his wife mid-boat. In his mind, the gondola was basically a living room floor. In reality, it's a long wooden beam floating on water that hates unnecessary movement. When the center of gravity shifts, physics doesn't negotiate. It acts. The boat tilts. The gondolier yells in Italian, a language capable of expressing centuries of disappointment in a single sentence. And then splash. Romance turns into an unscheduled canal bath. Venice is not a pool and that water is not spa grade. The selfie never happens. The phone learns how to swim. And everyone watching learns that just standing up for a second is the opening line of many terrible decisions. The gondola didn't flip out of malice. It flipped because tradition exists to protect against ideas that sound fun for exactly 3 seconds. 12. Cenotes in Mexico are stunning natural sinkholes with deep blue water and limestone edges sharp enough to qualify as warnings. And warnings exist, big ones, clear ones, no jumping. But warning signs trigger a strange response in some people if it's forbidden. There must be a reason, but that reason surely doesn't apply to me. One tourist stood on the cliff, looked down at the calm water and thought, it's deep. I'll be fine. What he didn't see were the rocks just beneath the surface because nature doesn't turn on hazard overlays. He took a running start. He jumped, and then met geology in the most personal way possible. The sound wasn't a splash. It was an anatomy learning a lesson. The landing turned a swim into a medical evacuation. Everyone watching learned that warning signs aren't decorative. They're summaries of past accidents. The cenote doesn't hate you. It's neutral. And nature's neutrality is brutally unforgiving to people who believe adrenaline can replace reading. Jumping here isn't brave. It's betting your bones for a few seconds of looking cool. A wager physics always wins. 13. In India, cows are not just animals. They are religious symbols, untouchable neighbors, and creatures with absolute right-of-way in traffic. But one American tourist stuck in a traffic jam saw a cow calmly sitting in the road and switched into what he thought was diplomacy American style. He got out of the car, yelled, clapped, and shooed it like a neighbor's dog off his lawn. The cow didn't panic. It didn't get angry. It simply stared at him with the expression of a being that has existed in this culture far longer than the concept of rush hour. Locals watched with a mix of patience and pity. Here you don't chase cows. You wait. Time is the only legal currency on that road. Yelling doesn't make cows move faster. It only reveals a cultural misunderstanding, the belief that everything responds to volume. Eventually, the cow stood up when it felt like it. Traffic moved when the cow allowed it. And the tourist learned that not every traffic problem requires getting out of the car to assert authority. In India, the cow isn't causing traffic. It is traffic. And you're just visiting. 14. International travel comes with many things: to remember your passport, your phone charger, and critically, don't bring live ammunition. But one American, packed with the confidence of someone who's traveled, plenty forgot a few bullets from last year's hunting trip. They sat quietly in his bag like tiny metal memories until airport security decided to read the story out loud. Security didn't laugh. They didn't ask what he planned to do with them. They simply shifted from procedure to problem. In many countries, ammunition isn't something you forget. It's a crime. And I forgot is not a legal spell. A vacation turns into meetings with lawyers, itineraries become detention schedules, and the phrase small mistake grows very long on official paperwork. This isn't bad luck. It's a lesson in how the world doesn't operate on your home airport's tolerance levels. Bullets don't need a gun to cause trouble. They just need you to assume rules or suggestions. When traveling, the most dangerous thing isn't the destination, it's the belief that everywhere will understand and forgive your carelessness. 15. Running with the bulls in Spain is already an unspoken contract with fate. You run, they chase, and everyone pretends this is tradition, not a survival reflex test. But one tourist decided to raise the difficulty by adding a selfie stick. Because if there's a chance of being gored, why not be gored in portrait mode? He charged into the crowd, one hand gripping the stick, the other gripping the belief that technology would somehow protect him. The bull's hundreds of kilos of muscle with horns shaped like rhetorical questions didn't care about framing. They cared about movement, and a selfie stick is an unnecessary movement. A white flag waved at physics. When he tripped, the video didn't become legendary. It became evidence, shaky footage, screaming, and the realization that running for your life requires both hands, not for content, but for balance. This tradition isn't reality TV. It exists to remind people that courage is not the same as carelessness. Holding a selfie stick while running with bulls is how you turn a dangerous ritual into a short presentation on Darwin. And the bulls without personal channels still get better engagement. 16. Stonehenge has stood for thousands of years, surviving weather wars and something even more unpredictable: tourists who believe barriers are suggestions. One person looked at the 25-ton stones and thought, if I touch it, I'll feel the energy. The energy then guided him over the rope past the warning signs and straight into a climbing decision. The stones did not vibrate. The universe did not send a message. What arrived instead was a security guard breathing heavily and a collective look of here we go again. Barriers exist because humans love turning heritage into props. Climbing Stonehenge doesn't bring you closer to history. It brings history closer to liability. Every step declares that you believe gravity is optional and rules are accessories. When he was pulled down, there was no personal revelation, just the realization that things that have survived millennia don't need you testing their durability. Stonehenge is not a gym, and the only energy you gain from touching it is the energy of a fine. Respect isn't required because the stones are fragile. It's required because human confidence when misplaced is incredibly durable. 17. Highland cows in Scotland look like living wall art: long hair covering their eyes, slow movements, and a vibe that says gentle. So a tourist looked at one and concluded rideable. He approached with the confidence of someone who once petted a neighbor's cat and lived. What he ignored were the curved horns, the half-ton body weight, and the fact that gentle does not mean available for mounting. When he tried to climb on, the cow didn't react immediately. It gave him exactly 1 second, just enough to register regret, then delivered the lesson with a very Scottish move, the toss. It wasn't aggressive, it was efficient. The tourist landed in the grass, ego broken, before Bones had time to complain. The owner didn't yell, they just sighed. This is not a petting zoo. This is livestock. And livestock does not sign performance contracts. Trying to ride a Highland cow is confusing aesthetics with biology. The hair may hide the eyes, but it doesn't hide the mass. And in the battle between it looks friendly and actual weight always wins, no debate, no editing. 18. The Parthenon sits above Athens as a reminder that history does not need you to take a piece of it home to exist. But one tourist looked at the 2500-year-old marble stones and thought, who would notice one small piece? That's the moment sightseeing turns into amateur archaeology. He bent down and pried gently, like picking a pebble off a beach. The universe didn't collapse, but security appeared fast and very real. Greeks love their heritage. Love it in a way that does not include your pocket. Souvenir is not a legal term. It's evidence. The Parthenon is not a self-serve gift shop. Every stone has survived empires, wars, and weather, not to become a keychain. When stopped, the tourist learned that history does not break itself apart to satisfy ownership cravings. You don't need to take notes to remember a trip. You need memory. Trying to steal a piece of the Parthenon is how you turn an ancient civilization into paperwork and yourself into a footnote beneath greatness. 19. Hippos in Colombia are the unintended legacy of a very long, very wrong, and extremely heavy story. They look around small-eared, shiny, designed to trigger the human brain's giant plush toy mode. One tourist saw a hippo near the riverbank and thought fun photo. He moved closer, posed, and reached out like he was meeting a mascot. What he ignored is that hippos kill more people every year than lions. Not because they're evil, because they're territorial, and because they weigh nearly 3 tons. Hippos don't bear teeth as a warning. They don't send emails. They act when boundaries are crossed. The next moment, water exploded, the ground shook slightly, and the fun photo almost became a final one. Locals yelled not at the hippo, but at the tourist. Touching a hippo is not loving nature. It's confusing shape with behavior. Colombia did not turn hippos into pets just because they look cute. They are wild animals with overwhelming physical authority. Photos here require long lenses, not cheap bravery. The hippo doesn't need your touch to confirm its existence. It needs you far, very far away, so everyone goes home on 2 legs. 20. The Sahara Desert is vast, hot, and completely uninterested in your personal growth story. But one tourist looked at the golden dunes and thought, I'll go for a run. For the experience. No water, no map, no plan, just running shoes and the belief that fitness could negotiate with the sun. The first 10 minutes were inspirational. 20 minutes were spent. 30 minutes were spent on biology filing formal complaints. The sun doesn't cheer, the sand doesn't clap, and the wind does not deliver vending machines. As the body drained, the brain switched to survival mode, bad decisions appearing faster than shade. The tourists stumbled back, angry that there were no water machines out here. The Sahara does not operate on customer service. It operates on rules. Running here isn't a mental challenge. It's a contextual misunderstanding. The desert doesn't reward effort, and it doesn't punish intent. It simply remains a desert. And when you enter with empty hands, the first thing to disappear isn't strength. It's the illusion that willpower can replace preparation. The Sahara doesn't need you to prove anything. It just needs you to respect distance and bring water. 21. Florida alligators are living proof that evolution never promised friendliness. They've been around since the dinosaurs' armored skin, too many teeth and reflexes faster than a vacation brain on standby. But on a perfectly manicured golf course where everything looks calm and comes with a cart, one tourist decided to upgrade the experience with a hot dog. He saw an alligator sunbathing by the water and thought it's hungry. This is the exact moment the human brain switches to Disney mode and turns biology off. The hot dog was tossed. The alligator learned a valuable lesson: humans equal food, not a metaphor, a formula. This kind gesture didn't just endanger the tourist, it turned the alligator into a public safety problem. Wildlife that gets fed comes back for more, and the ending is rarely cute. It usually involves conservation officers, relocation, or worse for the animal. On a golf course, the worst swing isn't a slice. It's teaching a prehistoric killing machine that lunch walks on 2 legs. Alligators don't need hot dogs. They need distance. And if you ever find yourself feeding processed meat to wildlife, remember nature doesn't need your creativity. It needs you to stop back away and leave. 22. Sea lions look like breathing pillows round warm and deeply committed to naps. This triggers an unnecessary protective instinct in some tourists. On a protected beach with very clear do not touch, do not approach signs, one person stepped off the trail to help a sea lion lying in the sun. The intention sounded noble. Move it into the shade. The problem is the sea lion didn't ask for help. It's sunbathing because its biology requires it. And it's heavy fast, has teeth, and cannot interpret your good intentions. When you enter its buffer zone, you don't become a hero, you become a threat. The response could be a charge-a-bite or a full panic reaction that endangers adults and pups alike. Stepping off the trail also damages vegetation and disrupts conservation systems designed to protect the very animals you claim to care about. I was worried it was hot is a human feeling, not data. Wildlife survives on uncomfortable realities, heat, cold, hunger, and silence. When you intervene, you replace biology with emotion. The usual outcome is rangers running whistles blowing, and an expensive lesson in helping the wrong way. Loving nature doesn't mean touching it. It means leaving it alone where it is how it is and far enough away. 23. La Tomatina in Spain operates on a very clear social contract, fund-controlled chaos, and nobody ends up hospitalized because of produce. The most important rule, more serious than traffic laws that day, is simple: crush the tomato before throwing it. This turns it into harmless pulp. But one tourist looked at the sea of red and misread the context completely. This is baseball, and I'm the pitcher, so he hurled whole tomatoes, good speed, clean arc, straight at people's heads. That's not fun, that's pain. And it's against the rules. This festival isn't about testing arm strength or releasing passive aggression. It's a soft game, not an agricultural war. When you throw uncrushed tomatoes, you're not being enthusiastic. You're turning a cultural event into a potential ER visit. The usual result is boos from the crowd intervention by organizers and to the tourist being escorted out quietly without ceremony. The irony is simple: one gentle squeeze and everything works. But some people don't believe in preparation. La Tomatina doesn't need heroes. It needs you to understand one basic rule crush before you throw. If you can't tell the difference between a soft game and a contact sport, the tomato may not be the only thing that needs to be squeezed. 24. Camels in front of the pyramids move at their own pace, the pace of animals, deserts, and thousands of years without urgency. But one tourist, armed with a packed itinerary and standard impatience, decided to speed things up by kicking and yelling, as if the camel spoke human and understood personal KPIs. Camels aren't slow. They're careful. They balance, and they remember. When provoked, the response isn't polite acceleration. It can be a full stop, a turn a spit, or a kick that turns sightseeing into a biomechanics lesson. In front of the pyramids, symbols of time itself, losing your temper over a few minutes of delay is a beautiful paradox. The tourist wants fast photos, clean angles, tidy stories. The camel wants survival. It does not serve your schedule. It serves gravity and safety. Local handlers often step in not to protect tourists from the pyramids, but to protect camels from tourists. If you ever find yourself kicking a working animal because it's too slow, remember the problem isn't its speed. It's that you brought hurry into a place built to endure, not to race. 25. Icelandic geysers are meant to be admired with your eyes, not with sacrificial electronics. But one tourist looked into a steaming rumbling vent and thought dropping a GoPro in there would go viral. This is where technology meets geothermal reality and loses instantly. The GoPro was strapped to a stick. The stick was lowered into the opening. Confidence was released. A brief silence followed. Then the geyser erupted. Pressure surged. Boiling water exploded upward, and the expensive camera became mechanical fireworks. It didn't capture footage. It vaporized in the literal physical sense. The crowd gasped, rangers sprinted over, and the inevitable question appeared. Is there a lost and found for items that have entered the atmosphere? Geysers are not pools and not studios. They are ancient pressure systems running on cycles, not your upload schedule. The warning signs aren't decorative text. They're science summaries, hot, violent, non-negotiable. Dropping a GoPro into a geyser isn't a scientific curiosity. It's using money to confirm the obvious: boiling water plus pressure equals goodbye electronics. Iceland doesn't need an underground POV. It needs you to step back and keep your camera in your hands. 26. Antarctica is so cold that even ideas need a jacket. But one tourist looked at the endless white ice and thought perfect place to grill some sausages. So out came a portable grill. The lighter clicked smoke rose, and to the collective scientific community of an entire continent sighed. Antarctica is not a backyard. It's a fragile ecosystem protected by international law where every piece of trash is tracked and every action has consequences. Lighting a grill here isn't just careless. It violates the core rule of leave no trace in a place where traces last a very long time. Grease drips onto the ice, smoke drifts, wildlife gets disturbed, and support staff have to shut down a bad idea before it becomes a precedent. Sausages don't taste better at the bottom of the world. They just get more expensive, paid for with reputation risk and the chance of being removed from the expedition. Antarctica doesn't need a barbecue. It needs restraint. If you have to light a fire to feel nature, you may have brought the wrong instincts to a place that only asks for silence. 27. The kiwi is a national symbol of New Zealand, but not in a mascot posing with tourists way. They're small, shy, nocturnal, and spend their entire lives actively avoiding humans. So when a tourist got disappointed after not seeing one during the day, he decided to solve the problem himself, stepping off the path, entering a protected reserve, and shaking bushes like he was looking for a lost TV remote. The logic was simple: if the bird doesn't come out, call it. Biology disagreed. Kiwi hear movement, panic easily, and stress something that can seriously impact reproduction in an already endangered species. Rangers didn't see passion for photography. They saw trespassing, because that's what it was. Leaving the trail doesn't just threaten wildlife, it damages a habitat protected meter by meter. The irony is that even if you do everything right, stay quiet, follow the rules, respect the space, your chances of seeing a kiwi are still very low. That's the point of wildlife. It doesn't perform on your schedule. Shaking bushes doesn't bring you closer to nature. It just makes you the reason more warning signs get installed. Kiwi doesn't need to be woken up. They need to be left alone in the dark exactly where they belong. 28. Pasta is simple. Boiling water is a basic concept. But when the two met on a balcony in Florence, social science accidentally entered beta testing. A student cooking pasta for the first time faced life's great culinary question. What do I do with the boiling water? The correct answer: pour it into the sink. The chosen answer: pour it straight onto the street from the balcony. Below, an elderly woman was walking by, and Italian food history experienced a moral crisis. Boiling water doesn't care about intentions. It burns, and it turns a kitchen mistake into a police report. The incident led to medical care and investigation, and a very expensive lesson about not using public space as an extension of your pot. This wasn't a personal tragedy. It was confidence without knowledge, the cooking edition. A balcony is not a drain, a street is not a sewer, and pasta does not require civilian sacrifice. If you don't know how to handle boiling water, the solution isn't creativity. It's asking. Florence doesn't need another pasta waterfall. It needs you to pour water where it belongs and keep the lid on the pot. 29. The Vatican is quiet, sacred, and filled with things that have existed longer than any opinion you've ever posted online. But for one tourist, the protective barrier wasn't a boundary, it was a challenge. He looked at an ancient statue and thought just one touch, as if marble needs tactile confirmation to remain in history. He hopped the barrier, reached out, and in that moment, time collapsed. Thousands of years of art met a 3-second impulse. Vatican security didn't applaud, they moved. Not because they hate tourists, but because their job is to protect the irreplaceable from curiosity with legs. Touching a statue doesn't make you understand art better. It leaves oils, sweat, and paperwork. The irony is that the Vatican lets you get very close, just not touch. But for some people, looking isn't enough. They need to connect. That connection usually ends with being escorted out and learning a very old lesson: preservation exists because humans don't always self-regulate. Art doesn't need you to prove it exists. It needs distance so it can keep existing for people who don't think everything is a button. 30. The Autobahn has sections with no speed limit, a phrase that sounds like freedom but actually means discipline. Cars move fast, drivers stay focused, and mistakes are not forgiven. So when a family pulled over onto the shoulder, got out, lined up, and started taking photos, German police asked the most reasonable question possible. Are you trying to die? The Autobahn is not a park. The shoulder is not a backdrop. And speed does not slow down because you want a memory. Standing next to traffic moving like ballistic missiles is placing your survival in the reflexes of strangers at lethal scale. The family smiled. The camera came up. Physics prepared a lecture. Here, just 1 minute is enough time to turn a photo into a memorial. The dark humor is this: the Autobahn works because everyone follows the rules. When you turn it into a studio, you break the social contract with empty confidence. The ending is usually sirens, flashing lights, and a cold explanation of why no picture is worth a human life. High-speed freedom comes with the responsibility to stay off the road. 30 moments where the world became a slightly safer place simply because common sense stayed home. Not to mock travel, but to remind us that a passport does not automatically include good judgment, and confidence is not a substitute for understanding. If at any point you laughed and winced at the same time thinking, there's no way someone actually did that, sorry, they did. Possibly somewhere very close to you. Now it's your turn. What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen a tourist do? Or worse, have you ever been the main character? Share it. We won't judge much. And if you enjoy content that exposes the exact moments when humans lose to themselves, subscribing isn't a moral obligation. It's just one of the smarter decisions in this video. We've got more stories coming, and the world has no shortage of overconfident people.